Hello, this is Christian Idealism, and today we are going to be looking at the methodology of philosophy of time. This is, of course, brought to you by Cal Allender. So first, what should we use to actually investigate the truth about time? Well, time is empirical in the sense that we experience it every day in our lives, but it is also philosophical since, well, it is within the realm of metaphysics when asking these questions. And so in our investigation, we should consider using both science and philosophy to discover the truth about time. Now, some philosophers, like William Lane Craig, say that if we use special relativity to prove which view of time is correct, then we are assuming verificationism, since we are not taking into account the prior philosophical assumptions in our interpretations of special relativity and what that has on reality. Well, the problem is that this assumes that spacetime itself is not empirical, which is a false premise, and that spacetime is not relative. So technically, this does little to actually diminish the more simple interpretations of special relativity, since it itself is based on prior philosophical assumptions, which we will look into and see if these assumptions should actually be accepted or not. And so, again, we need to have simplicity in science. So when investigating special relativity, we will only consider what is the simplest interpretation and only take into account the necessary assumptions of special relativity that make it explain all of its data. And so any unnecessary assumptions will be dismissed since they are not needed to explain the data. We will address whether spacetime is absolute or relative, since it is one of the foundational assumptions with regards to our philosophical presuppositions when we actually interpret the scientific data regarding special relativity. So now, we're also going to take into account the philosophical arguments and intuition. So the philosophical arguments will speak for themselves. While some philosophical arguments say nothing about science, they do help in our general investigation. And so first, presentism is intuitive, obviously, since we always feel like we're in the present. And so without any additional data here, it seems that presentism obviously has the upper hand if we're talking in terms of which one is the most intuitive to us. But the question is whether presentism can actually hold up and stand against the evidence, because again, intuition is obviously not an indicator of truth, and so if there's evidence that refutes presentism, then our intuitions are wrong, and so we have to take that into account. And so our methodology will be taken into account both the philosophy as well as the simplest interpretations of the scientific data to get the most accurate view on the nature of time, and we will also address certain philosophical assumptions like an observer-independent reality, or in the other case would be absolute space. So we're going to take into account very important philosophical assumptions that people make when making these type of conclusions. And so in the next video, we will consider the main philosophical arguments against views on the philosophy of time. So that will be our next video. But anyways, thank you guys for watching and have a nice day.